What's going on, guys? You are watching Brett in the Trap Sings McKnight podcast. Okay, so we just have a new reader of the new book. You want to hand me the book? Thank you. We got City of the Thieves. This is a World War II book, kind of fiction, kind of non-fiction, written by David Benioff. So we got this new reader, new book. We're gonna hit up the new reader. His name's Brett Romani. He's gonna tell you about the book, whether he recommends it or not, what it's about, main characters, all that. Alright, so let's take it to him. And Brett, tell me what it's about, dog. Thanks for having me, Brett, in the Trap Sings McKnight podcast. So yes, my name is Brett Romani, and I just read the book City of the Thieves. So what this book is basically about is two main characters, Lev and Kolya, who go on a mission from the Russian army to set out from the Russian cold, where there's absolutely nothing pretty much during World War II, to find a dozen eggs. Yeah, a dozen eggs. That might seem a bit peculiar since we can just go to our local Safeway and buy eggs, but this is like 1940, freezing cold, Russian winter. All the chickens have died because of the cold, so there's about no eggs, and all the farms and stuff have been taken over by the Nazis. So, let's get into it. You want to ask me any questions, interviewer? Okay, Brett, it's good to have you here. So, the first thing I wanted to ask you is how the book starts off, and let's go into the main details of how they set off into this mission, because there's no way the army just drafted them and sent them to get eggs. So, tell me how that mission came about. Right, of course, thanks. So, how the book started off was, present time, 30-year-old kid moves off to, he goes to Florida to visit his grandparents, where they were the main character of the story, the grandpa. The son of the present time, or the grandson of the present time, asked the grandpa to tell him some stories for his journal so that he could write them down and create a good story, which is pretty much how this book came along. So what happened was the grandpa was kind of resisting to tell him the story, but he gave in and started it. So what happened was this little boy called Lev, that's his short name, it's Russian, I don't know his full name, kind of difficult to pronounce. Anyways, Lev started off in the city of Leningrad in Russia, right? Is this on? Alright, so he was in Leningrad. One of the Nazis' plan was to jump out of the plane over Russian cities and parachute down and start attacking the Russians. This was tested by one Nazi soldier. He was jumping out of the airplane, but because of the Russian winter and the freezing cold, he pretty much froze to death mid-air because it was so freezing out there. So when he landed into the city which Lev was in, called Leningrad, he just floated down and he was already dead. Now, the city dwellers, being as starving and in poverty as they were, they immediately rushed to the body and looted it. Now, this was a federal offense towards Russia because they were looting stuff that the Russian army could use. Because of this, the Russian army immediately rushed to the body, so as the city dwellers did, and they started to chase all the looters. Lev got the unlucky hand, and because he went back to rescue one of his friends who had slipped on the ice, he was caught by the army, and he was taken to the crosses, which is pretty much like death row in America. Now that night, he met his partner in crime named Kolya. He was caught and found when he left one of his cities too. Now the next morning, they thought that they was going to die. But, they were lucky. I don't know how, though, their unlucky event by getting caught all led down the path of lucky, events and just, actions. So what happened was they was taken to the colonel of the Russian army of that city, and they were given the mission to find 12 eggs because his wife wanted eggs for their daughter's birthday, for their daughter's wedding. She said it was like a wedding tradition. So the colonel was like, yeah, we're gonna need these damn eggs, so you're gonna have to go and find them and get them, because I gotta make my wife happy. And that's pretty much that. That's how that mission started off. Alright. Wow, so that's really interesting. So I guess they were really unlucky. So you said Lev got caught. He was helping a friend and he got caught. That's super unlucky. But you mentioned how they were really lucky throughout the book. You want to like elaborate on that, like what specific events they were lucky in, and let's get into the middle and the climax of the book and like other characters that they meet into. Right. So they were very lucky. And when I mean very lucky, I mean very, very lucky. Okay, I need to emphasize that. So what happened was after they got that mission, Kolya and Lev set off into the Russian cold wilderness with some notes from the colonel telling them their mission if they ever get caught by any Russian army. So basically what happened, they went to their first city where they thought that they could find some eggs in the black market. They were like kind of told by the city people there that one person might have some eggs and he had some chickens in the beginning of summer when there were a lot. So Lev and Kolya go to this building where they were pointed to. And they're met by this huge, like burly, fat, but like at the same time strong dude who was like, yeah, we have eggs. Just come up into our building and I'll take you to them. Yeah, we've kept the chickens nice and safe. Lev and Kolya were like, we're not going to risk this chance. Let's go up and see what's there. They go up, and of course, like as expected, it's only the 50th page of the book and there's 250 pages. There were no chickens. And apparently all like pretty much the people in that city were cannibals. And I mean cannibals where they ate people because there was no food. Like how bad is that? So they immediately, once they got into like the top room of like this pretty tall building, I guess, the fat, strong dude pulled out a cleaver, and the other woman that was in the building like pulled out this huge metal pipe. Now Lev was kind of a bit like of a wussy at the time. So Kolya was like, Lev, get out of here, I'll fight these two. He like immediately crossed and like punched the woman in the face, and Lev didn't know the rest because he was like outside of the room waiting. Kolya comes out, he's like, yeah, I took care of it, let's move on. So like again, they had two weapons, it was 2v1, and Kolya only had fists. And Kolya was pretty big, but still it was like super unfair. I don't know how it happened, they were really lucky and they were able to get away. So now they move on to like pretty much the second city, where they were also told that this person had many chickens in the summer, but although now they knew that the person guarding the chickens had a shotgun and would kill anyone who came into there. So they go up to like the farm or wherever the chickens were like being, or wherever they were located to. And Lev and Kolya went into there and they were like really cautious because they didn't want to obviously get shot. So they were like, yo, we're Russian army, we have papers from the colonel, we just want to come check out your chickens. And like they walked in, whatever, and there was no shotgun. When they came into like the main area where the chickens were supposed to be, they saw one boy who was literally freezing to death. And when they came up closer, they saw that he had a chicken like wrapped up in his coat so that he could keep the chicken warm so it wouldn't die. And the boy was like so hungry, so cold. He was basically, and he was also lying next to like his dad, who was dead, who was like the main person that was guarding the chickens before. And Lev and Kolya did some negotiation, I guess. They did most of the talking because the boy didn't really want to. And the boy, like his only words were, just take it. And they took the chicken. And they're like, yes, we got the chicken. There's no eggs, but we'll wait for it to lay eggs. So Lev and Kolya went to one of Kolya's friend's house where there was like a bunch of people like just staying, like keeping warm together and like bringing food. And one of these doctors for the Russian army come to the place to like chill out that night as well. And he hears a story that they're waiting for the eggs. And the dude's like, yo, that's a rooster. What are you talking about? That's not going to lay eggs. And they was like, damn, alright, let's make the best of it. So they made like a chicken soup, then they had some potatoes, and they had like the best meal throughout that winter that they've ever had. So that's that. Next time they move to another city, well, they were going to move to another city, and when they were like so tired that they couldn't move anymore, Kolya admitted that they were like, yo, I got bad news and good news. Bad news, we're going the complete opposite way. Good news, there is none. Lev was like, oh my god, you just messed this whole thing up. I see a little house with lights on. Let's go check it out. There's probably Germans in there, but I can't move anymore, so let's go. It was not that far. When they went into the house, they found like girls in their like nightshirts, like completely warm, dancing, happy, and everyone was like, what? They realized that they were Russian, and they knocked on the door. They got to talking. They met each other, and they realized that that house was where like the prestigious German assassins came every night to those girls, had fun, like drank, got fed, and then used the girls for like pleasure. That's the only reason why they kept the girls alive, because they killed the girls' family and everything. So they were talking to these girls. They were like, yeah, the assassins will come like around midnight. I don't know what you're gonna do. Lev and Kolya like went into the room when the assassins came, and they were waiting. Kolya had a gun that he looted off one of the soldiers, and Lev had a German knife that he looted from the German soldier in the very beginning of the book that obviously caused this mission to ever start. So what happened was they were waiting in the room. They were like, what's going on? What's taking so long? Let's get them inside and get them drunk, and then we'll shoot them. Other Russian assassins did the shooting for them. While they were outside, the German assassins, you could just hear like gun bullets. And Lev and Kolya got impatient of waiting in the room. They went outside. They saw all the German soldiers dead, while the Russian like assassins were shouting from afar from where they were shooting, making sure that they were Russians. So again, they were lucky again, and they didn't have to fight them. It was insane. And there was a lot of talk, whatever. Eventually, they got caught by Germans, and when they were traveling to Estonia to work in steel mills for the Germans, Kolya was sweet-talking one of the German soldiers when like he found out that this high-ranked Nazi was really good at chess. And Kolya, speaking German and like the sweet-talker that he was like, yo, my friend Lev is really good at chess. Let's set up a match. They set up a match that night. The deal was, if Lev won, they would get a dozen eggs and their freedom, and if they lost, they was dead. Now, what was happening? Lev was obviously, like, he was so good at chess, but it didn't really matter, because, like, they knew it was pretty much a trap. Lev was, like, towards winning, and he, like, was about to pull out his knife when her friend and Kolya started attacking the soldiers in the back of like the chess game. Now, if Lev had pulled out his knife faster, he was dead. But because he was like kind of like fiddling with it and slow, the high-ranked like other chess player that he was playing had to turn around and like was pointing the gun when Lev was like, I have my chance. He took out his knife quickly, stabbed him to death. He was gone. So he was lucky just off that timing. And while he like right before he was stabbing him, the German soldier was pointing his knife, was about to shoot his friend, when Lev like kicked his gun out of the way, and that's when he stabbed him. And then so he saved the girl's like life. Her name was Vic. She was like, they kind of had a relationship towards the end, kind of irrelevant. And then Kolya was battling on the floor with the German soldier over a gun when Lev jumped on the German soldier's back and just started stabbing him. Before they could think, they grabbed the eggs and ran because they knew the Germans were going to come for them. So again, they were lucky. They got the timing. This is 3 cities that they've went to and always gone lucky. It's crazy. I don't know. What else do you want to hear? Wow. Okay. That was interesting. So I guess they were really lucky. Now, did these like 3 cities that you said they went to, did that take up like the whole book, like the basic plot? Or was there any details that you were just missing? And if that was the whole plot, how did the book end? And tell me your thoughts. What do you would review it out of 5 stars? And if you would recommend it to a friend. And tell me why you chose this book. Right, so that was basically the whole plot. I mean, there was nothing else really. They really were just like looking for the eggs, and now they had the eggs. Although, one like minor detail that I missed was like those Russian assassins that killed the German assassins. One of them got killed traveling to the steel mills, but like one of the other main ones, her name was Vic. She was like kind of innocent girl, and Lev was like only like 19. And he hadn't been with the girl yet, so he like connected with her very well. And he was kind of really influenced by Kolya, who was like a ladies' man. So that's kind of a minor detail, because towards the end of the book they kind of linked up, and they were like, that's like the happy ever after, I guess. But towards the end of the book, they got the eggs, and they were traveling back to like where the colonel was staying so that they could give him the eggs, when they were stopped by Russian soldiers. And there was like a miscommunication. Kolya was trying to like talk to him, and they accidentally stood up. Kolya got shot in the butt, but it kind of worked out good. Kolya got rushed to the hospital. Then they rushed Lev to the colonel. He gave him the eggs, and that was pretty much the end of that kind of like period of time. Then we move like to the future when Russia wins the war, and everyone was happy. Lev was like shouting on the rooftops of that first house that they stayed in when they had the chicken soup. And then we skip again into the future when Lev is living in an apartment in Russia, in Moscow, like the main city now, and it's like all freedom and stuff. He has his own apartment. That's when Vic and him split up like towards the end of the book, but Vic was like, I'm gonna track you down, give me your name, and I'm gonna find you later. And so, since it was in the future, it was a total like surprise. Vic was there at his doorstep, at his apartment, and she was like, yo, I got eggs, let's make an omelet. And that's how the book ended. And I'd say overall, I actually really enjoyed this movie. This book. I wish there was a movie so I could watch it now. But I really enjoyed this book. I chose it because I read another World War II book previously, and I can like honestly say that both of them were really good, and I'll try to find another like fiction World War II story kind of thing. So out of 5 stars, I'd rate it 4.5, because it was like kind of a weird story, like not like a typical like eggs. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I definitely would recommend it to a friend if they were into that kind of thing. But thanks for having me. That's all the time I got. I'm a dip, yo. You have like no viewers. You have like 2 viewers that are gonna watch this. This is kind of stupid, wasting my time. I'm dipping. See ya. Well, okay, I guess Brett just dipped. Well, you heard it here, folks. This book, City of the Thieves, was recommended. If you like this kind of book, go out and get it. You've heard the plot, kind of a spoiler. Spoiler alert, cap. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in to Brett and the Trap Sings McKnight. You know, thanks for giving us your time, Brett. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, guys. And I'll see you in the next one.
The flame says, let your ambition carry